Good morning. No, that is incredibly kind. It's I who should be applauding for you, and I will say more about how deeply grateful I am a little bit later. But gosh, it's good to see you. It really, really is. And for those of you I haven't met yet or just met this morning, it's good to see you too. Welcome. Welcome to the United Church of Gainesville. I am Talia Raymond, minister along with Donna Scopper, and I have been away on sabbatical and just so thrilled to return to you. I said to someone this morning, the well is deeper, and I am so grateful for the time, and I'm going to tell you so much more. But for now, a few announcements about the life of the church that we share. This morning, we were delighted to celebrate one moment in our 60th anniversary celebrations. And pay attention, we will have more opportunities in the coming months to celebrate 60 years of the United Church of Gainesville. This morning, we honored one of our founders, Bob Adkins, with a beautiful breakfast and presentation by his son, John, and family is here. Did you make it over yet, or would you wave if they're coming? That's right. In a little bit, there's, grandson in the back. We will hear a little bit more from John in the service, and we certainly celebrate with them on today, which would have been Bob's 100th birthday. So we'll definitely add him to a special song in a little while, too. After church today, we invite you all to take some time over in Reimer Hall, just across the courtyard, at our annual Time and Talent Fair. Explore the tables, ask good questions, and find where your heart may be called to serve this year. Speaking of service, we are moving forward with our Shelter in the Storm program. The training that was supposed to take place yesterday has been rescheduled for next Saturday, August 23rd from 2 to 4. So please spread the word, plan to be here, and if you are not sure what Shelter in the Storm is, see Don Beachy and Vivian Gutierrez at the table next door, and they will tell you about this incredible program that we are launching to help support those in our immigrant community who may need shelter when storms come that is safe. Also, if you are the parent of a person who is in 5th grade or younger, we invite you after the service to travel past Reimer Hall all the way to our education wing and to meet the teachers, to fill out a registration form, and to see all of the exciting things happening over there. And then if you are someone who is in 6th through 12th grade, your kickoff is later this afternoon at Skate Station, and you'll see the times for both middle school and high school in the bulletin. A reminder that next week is our annual Gathering of the Water Service, and more information if you want to remember what those water names are will come out Tuesday, but I hope you've been gathering water from those places that are sacred to you over the summer, and we'll bring those as we gather our community together next Sunday. There are even more announcements of even more wonderful things happening in our bulletin, and I hope that you will take the time to read those and to take part in this wonderful, wonderful community. And Chad is coming forward.
Just a quick announcement. Does anybody know if you drove a silver or grayish Nissan Rogue with a Texas plate? Because your car may still be running out in the parking lot if you did. So if you just want to let you know, gas is expensive, so you might want to go out.
Thank you. Oh. And Anne has a key that has a glass tree key ring on it. So if that may be yours, Anne has it. Thank you for all the ways we take care of one another here. What a beautiful way to lead into a sacred time with sacred people. Now let us take a moment to take some deep breaths and center ourselves for worship.
Let it be known and proclaimed. Let this truth sink into the depths of your being. The presence of God receives us as we are. Our questions, our pain, our stories unfinished, and memories held close. There is a love to hold it all, quieting the noise of shame, casting out the words of not enough. The voice of God says, welcome, welcome, welcome.
I'd like to invite all of my young friends and anyone else who'd like to come to join me on the stairs this morning. Not twisted. Good morning. Hello, friends. Hi. It is so good to see you all. I have missed you so much. You've all gotten so tall and grown up over the summer. My goodness. Hello. Did school start this week for everybody down here? Yes. School started for everybody. About how far away is your school from your house? From where you live? About 2 miles? How far? You can literally walk. That is really cool. How far? 2 miles. Everybody's pretty close. Anybody further? Your legs hurt when you, oh yeah. It's sometimes, because you have to walk from your house. I know, it's so, yeah. You're getting stronger and stronger, I bet, every day. Yeah. Yeah, sometimes that's hard work. Well, this summer, you may have noticed I was gone. You probably were so busy with amazing summer things that hopefully you didn't. But I went on a very special trip, and I went all the way to France to go to school. To learn. Yeah, I know. So I went to take some classes in a very special place, and it's on the cover of this book. It's called Chartres Cathedral. Can you see it? Whoa, yeah.
That's your school?
Pretty big. Doesn't really look like a school, does it? No. Well, it does look like it is a church. It's a really big church. It's bigger than 2 football fields. Yeah. So I know, the one that I got to visit. So what do you expect to learn when you go to school? What do you expect to learn? Math, reading, what else? Science.
Like learning.
Yeah, just learning. That's pretty, and a lot of that stuff was here too. There's actually sacred geometry, and we read stained glass windows, and you know that Pythagoras is actually on a statue on this. He's a big math guy and a science guy. There was lots of that kind of learning to do here. But also, I went on a trip called a pilgrimage. When you go on a pilgrimage, it's kind of a special type of learning. So when you go to school, you told me the things you expect to learn, right? Math and reading and science. When you go on a pilgrimage, you try to go without any expectations. I know. You go just ready to experience what there is to know. And I went to this very special place, and I learned so much, and we're going to talk about it through the year, and I'm going to show some pictures. But this special place is known for a very special person, a very special mom that usually 5th graders play in the Christmas pageant. Do you know who that special mom might be? You don't know. There's a special baby who was born on Christmas.
Jesus.
Who's Jesus' mom? Mary, absolutely. This cathedral is known as Mary's house, Mary's Cathedral. And they have a very special thing here. I'll show you a picture. It's called the Veil of Mary, and here it is in a box, in a very special gold box. And we talked about science, right? So they believe that this is a veil that was wrapped around Mary when she gave birth to baby Jesus. Now, we can't know for sure, but using science, do you know what we do know for sure? Do you know what pollen is? What's pollen? What's pollen? Yeah, bees collect it. It's that yellow stuff makes some of us sneeze on flowers, right? So some scientists took this veil and they found in it pollen from guess where? 1st century Palestine. Guess who lived in 1st century Palestine? Mary! So you know what? Could be. Well, this was so special to this town, they built this cathedral for Mary. And they honor her there. And I know, and for 1,000 years, people have been going to this cathedral. And in the medieval times, there was something called a pilgrim's pendant. And when you went to a special cathedral for a special person, you got a pendant. And when I visited, I got my very own pilgrim's pendant. And Holden can put it, there it is. So this was found when they dredged the Seine, and they found several of them. And this is obviously a copy of it. This isn't the medieval one. But this pendant was given to people who visited this special place. Look on the left here, over on this side. Who do you think that is?
Mary.
It's Mary. And who's Mary holding? Baby Jesus, absolutely. And the letters on the top say the sign of the Blessed Mary across the top. And on the other side, you see two people carrying kind of a very special thing on their shoulders. Do you know what that is a picture of, do you think? Here's a hint. Of the veil, yeah. So people who traveled to Chartres in the medieval times and even now can get this special pilgrim's pendant to say they went there and they learned and they saw and they experienced and they prayed together with people over 1,000 years. Isn't that pretty cool? Yeah.
How did they copy that?
I know. How did they copy it? You know, we need to ask a metal worker that question, but I think they made a print of it and were able to press new metal into it.
Did he make her
Yeah.
write it?
So this church, people have been traveling to for 1,000 years. Did you happen to hear this morning how many years people have been coming to this church?
6.
Yeah, you're right, 60. Exactly right, 60 years. And I was thinking to myself, if we were to make a very special pendant that people would know you had been to this very special church. I'm wearing it as a necklace. People in medieval times would sew it into their clothing. Yeah, and wear it as protection. Yeah. What do you think we would put on it? So this one has Mary and Jesus because they have a very special connection to her. What do you think we put on a UCG one? Maybe the church. What do you think?
Something that relates to Florida.
Oh, maybe something that relates to Florida. That's a good idea.
Oh my.
What do you think is special about this place? What's special about this place? It's big. And you can learn. Yeah, so something about our learning, something about how there's room for everyone here, and something about the people who have found their way here for 60 years to love and to learn together. If you have more thoughts about that, let us know, because we're looking for a logo for our 60th anniversary. So maybe we can make our own special symbol of our special place that shows everybody our place, where, just like you said, Oak, where we learn and we love one another. All right, my friends, let's say a prayer together before you head off to activity time. Yeah, we're going to do birthdays too, right after the prayer, I promise. All right. God of love and learning, thank you for special places on this earth where we feel connected to you. Thank you for this special place where we get to connect to one another, where people have come for 60 years to learn how to love and serve you and love and serve each other. Help us wear this place as a symbol on our hearts. Amen. All right. You have pockets. I love pockets. All right. Does anyone down here have a birthday today or this week? Not quite yet. Our big sister says maybe not quite yet. But if you want to stand up, you can still stand up with us. Anybody? All right. Would you like to say your name in the microphone? Here, so everybody can
My name's Armani.
Armani. All right. And do we have any birthdays on this side of the church? Sally? Oh, I heard everybody was last week. That's all right. And the center section? That's okay. Can we sing for you today? Jane? Robert? And on this side? Lucy? And is there a member of Bob's family that would like to stand so that we can sing Happy 100th to our founder, Bob Atkins? Would someone? Thank you. There. And Bob. Do we have another? Oh, you're great. grandchildren, and you're going to stand too. Yes. All right. So we are going to sing happy birthday to Armani, Sally, Jane, Robert, Lucy, and Bob. Let's sing. Have an awesome time, friends. I will see you after church. You're here for vacation. It's a good place for vacation.
Pleasure to introduce you to John Atkins, the son of Robert Atkins, our founder. I asked John if there was something more I should say about him besides his being a son, and he said, no, today is Dad's Day. And if you were here this morning for the first hour, you have begun to celebrate our 60th anniversary. Thank you for coming.
This is a newer experience for me. I may be reading a lot, but Dad was born in Mayfield, Kentucky, 100 years ago today. He and his family traveled all around the USA, including Texas and California, before settling down in Paragould in northeast Arkansas. One of the last stories he told me was that he saw a flatbed truck with a little red wagon on it in the middle of his town, and that he wanted that little red wagon. And several hours later, the truck arrived at the house, and his parents presented it to him. From that, Dad said he learned optimism. It was a challenging time to be optimistic. Ages 5 through 11, he lived through the Great Depression. His family took in strangers, particularly when the Mississippi River overflowed. I guess one of them said that, Mrs. Atkins, we have had so much fried chicken, do you have anything else? That's kind of unusual. He was held back in the first grade. The teacher said, "Mrs. Atkins, you have a wonderful little boy, but he doesn't know what's going on." From there, he learned to deal with adversity. He became an honor student. He was admitted to Duke University. He was the business manager of the school newspaper. He was president of his fraternity. He was the Naval ROTC. And he got the Navy paid for his college tuition. He decided to go to graduate school after the Navy. The interviewer asked him a complex question, and he got up from the chair and walked around the office ruminating about it. The interviewer was impressed with that, and apparently also with Dad's answer, and so he was thusly admitted to Harvard Business School. He served his country in Korea, transporting Marines from Japan to South Korea and picking them up a year later. He said there was quite a difference in their faces between the outgoing trip and the return trip. He founded Atkins Technical in 1957 in Cleveland and decided to move to Gainesville to a lower cost, more pleasant environment. Mom and Dad really loved the Congregational Church in Breckville, Ohio, and looked for something like that down here in Gainesville. I was on the front porch of my friend when Dad was picking me up, and he talked to Dr. Wilkinson, who had a colleague, Dr. Strack Kerr, who was interested in forming a congregational church. That's the first thing I heard. I guess that's the beginnings of the United Church of Gainesville. Dad would take me to meetings of groups that he was involved in, including Rotary Club, and I was the only, I was in attendance and the only teenager at the UCG meeting where Dad was nominated and elected the first lay minister. He told me that he strongly approved of one of the UCG members to use the phrase, "to worship God, however known." Civil rights was a huge deal in the mid and late 60s. The College Inn cafeteria would not admit black patrons, and my mother was part of a group that picketed them, including a good number of members of the UCG. Dad was in the car at the south side of University Avenue. He had been a naval officer, and if there was trouble, he wanted to protect my mother and the other picketers. There was none, as it turned out. A few years later, he told me that he was in a board meeting interviewing candidates for the newly vacant position of minister of UCG. A young fresh out was asked to expand on his religious philosophy. The candidate did that, and then went around to each board member and asked them to explain their religious philosophy. Dad later told the board members, "This is our guy." And Larry Reimer became the UCG minister. One day he received a call from Bruce. We're talking Atkins Technical now, the business. Bruce, our new sales rep, he had received a commission check, although he knew that he wasn't in that geographic area. Dad knew that Bruce had done the work to get the job, and he thusly gave him the check. Bruce was so impressed with his honesty that he worked very hard to sell our company's thermometers to such people as Taco Bell and Burger King. Actually, years later, my family, Joe and I and the boys, Jason's in attendance here, spent the afternoon on a boat in Long Beach, Bruce's boat, and he took us out to dinner. That connection was based on Dad's integrity, of which there are many examples. A senior member of Atkins management, who himself became a UCG minister, writes, "I've not been around anyone with more integrity and desire to do the right thing, to say the right words, and to live his values every day of his life. My life was changed and made better in so many ways by the things your father did for the community where we lived and directly for me and my family." As a boy, I had seen Dad working out of the den of our home alone after he left the job at utility company. Decades later, we had a large order, and there were 100 employees and temps working on the big order. Bob Atkins is a great example of the good guys winning. He took me to Cleveland Indians and Cleveland Browns ball games when we lived in Cleveland. And he practiced catch with me when I needed to be a better contributor to my Little League team. Is that diplomatic enough? I did not receive undesirable pressure to excel at sports. He did all those things because it was the right thing to do, even though I was to find out later he was not particularly interested in sports. In fact, years later, I offered him a $10 bill if he could name 10 NFL players, living or dead. My $10 bill was safe. I picked up a phrase, "killing time," possibly from an Archie comic book as slang for waiting around. I used it in a phrase to Dad and instantly received a parental remonstration. He said, "Time is all we have," and made other points which have since discouraged me from ever using that phrase again. As a teenager, I was in a Unitarian youth group for a while. This was around 1967. The adult leader posed a question to us and had us write down the answer and turn it in. The question, "Do your parents generally know what is best for you?" So we all would have been around 16 years old in the 60s. The parents failed this ballot. 17-1. I, of course, was the lone positive. I considered the possibility that I was some sort of lightweight, but I now see that I had an accurate assessment of my situation. Later, I told friends that Dad and I didn't beat us up too badly by the standards of the 60s. That got a laugh, but the truth is, he was extraordinary. I might not have seen it all at that time, but I certainly see it now. I had grown up with marvelous values and dismissed them later as being obvious and thus ordinary, and have since found that his ideals are not universally practiced. Dad understand that children need to make their own way. He had gone through that with his father. Dad and I often had lunch when I lived in Gainesville. One day in 2008, just before he moved to Portland, we were sitting in his car and both realized that our twice-a-week lunches were going to occur something more closely approximating twice a year. I will always remember the look on his face and my own emotions. I received a call at work on February 10th, 2021. It was from Charlotte Soybert, who's in our audience today. She told me that Dad had passed away that morning. I went back to my room in St. Louis where I was contracting. It was not far from the town where Dad was born. As I got out of the car, I saw the gray, bleak sky and felt the bitter cold. I smiled, an unusual emotion in a day otherwise filled with tears. I said to myself, this is the perfect weather for the day in which Dad was taken from us.
Thank you. Let us pray. Let there be peace on earth. Let there be peace here in this church. Let there be peace in our hearts. Amen.
For the Traveler by John O'Donohue. Every time you leave home, another road takes you into a world you were never in. New strangers on other paths await, new places that have never seen you will startle a little at your entry. Old places that know you well will pretend nothing changed since your last visit. When you travel, you find yourself alone in a different way, more attentive now to the self you bring along. Your more subtle eye watching you abroad and how what meets you touches that part of the heart that lies low at home. How you unexpectedly attune to the timbre in some voice, opening in conversation you want to take in, to where your longing was pressed hard enough, inward on some unsaid dark, to create a crystal of insight you could not have known you needed to eliminate your way. When you travel, a new silence goes with you, and if you listen, you will hear what your heart would love to say. A journey that can become a sacred thing. Make sure before you go to take the time to bless your glowing forth, to free your heart of ballast, so that the compass of your soul might direct you toward the territories of spirit where you will discover more of your hidden life and the urgencies that deserve to claim you. May you travel in an awakened way, gathered wisely into your inner ground, that you may not waste the invitations which wait along the way to transform you. May you travel safely, arrive refreshed, and live your time away to its fullest. Return home more enriched and free to balance the gift of days which call you.
In the shadows of tall buildings, of fallen angels on the ceilings, oily feathers in bronze and concrete, faded colors, pieces left incomplete. The line moves slowly past the electric fence, across the borders between continents. In the cathedral echoing vistas. Someone is listening. From a safe distance, the line moves slowly into a fading light, a final moment. In the dead of night, in the cathedrals of New York and Rome, there is a feeling that you should just go home and spend a lifetime finding out just where that is. In the cathedrals of New York and Rome, there is a feeling that you should just go home and spend a lifetime finding out just where that is.
From the first chapter of the Gospel of John. In a moment. There we go. When Jesus turned and saw them following, he said to them, "What are you looking for?" They said to him, "Rabbi," which translated means teacher. "Where are you staying?" He said to them, "Come and see." The only way that I could possibly begin my time with you this morning is by beginning to just attempt to express the depth of gratitude that I feel for each one of you and the gift you have given to me. You made lifelong dreams come true, ignited new ones I didn't even know were waiting to be realized. For your gifts, your love, your prayers, the extra work that I know you did while I was away. Thank you forever. Thank you. This time wouldn't have happened without you, and that poem of John Donahue's that Taylor read a bit ago was for you. It was read during one of the morning chapel services in the old monastery I was staying while in Chartres, France. And when I heard it, I thought of you and the blessings that carried me there. So thank you for those blessings. I treasure them more than I can express. And I have so much to share with you. And I will, and it will take time. And today will be less of a sermon and more of a sharing. And I hope that just this small piece of my pilgrimage story will connect with one of yours. And for this story, I need to begin just briefly at the beginning. In 2002, I was writing my undergraduate honors thesis on ancient forms of sacred dance and met the labyrinth for the first time. And then I learned that the labyrinth in Grace Cathedral in San Francisco was modeled after the 11th Circuit labyrinth in Chartres Cathedral, France. And so when I moved to Berkeley, California for grad school the next year, Grace Cathedral and its labyrinth called to me. I became a member of the Omega West Dance Company in residence at Grace Cathedral. The labyrinth became part of warming, energizing, and centering my body and my mind. When writing my Master's of the Arts thesis on yet more sacred dance practices, I was inspired anew by the story of Chartres and thought, well, wouldn't it be amazing to go there someday? That pull toward Chartres never let go. And almost exactly 20 years later, I walked inside the cathedral and placed my pilgrim feet on that 800-year-old path. On Sunday, June 1st, I took the train from Paris to Chartres, sitting on the left-hand side as instructed by pilgrims who had gone before me. And for about an hour, I watched fields of wheat go by as I traveled through the breadbasket of France. And then, like magic, as for so many before me, the spires of Chartres Cathedral appeared, rising out of the distance. And then the whole cathedral was right there, like a postcard, almost unreal through the window. This is the letters that spell Chartres that are just outside the train station. As I walked up the hill, my feet found the pilgrim scallop shell in the pavement, pointing the way. As you get close to the cathedral, there's a time when you're in those cobbled streets and you lose sight of the cathedral for just a moment. Anticipation building, I turned the corner, and there she was, Our Lady of Chartres Cathedral. Its massiveness, as I told the kids, more than 2 football fields, intricate carvings and casts of hundreds of stone characters, and just so deeply beautiful, it was difficult to comprehend. I hurried to find the old monastery where I'd be staying so I could leave my bag, and I scurried back up to the massive black front doors. Passing through them, it took scarcely 2 steps, and I was weeping. Perhaps signifying my heart was free of that ballast O'Donoghue mentioned in his poem. Stepping forward, I scanned the floor until I found the lunations, that outermost part of the labyrinth, almost completely obscured by the chairs that cover the labyrinth, and wept some more. I walked round and round the cathedral that day, bathing in the light of Chartres blue, glowing from the largest collection of medieval stained glass in the world, 176 windows that serve as a literal library, telling story after story without words. I stepped into every alcove and every chapel and every space I could find and found Mary again and again. There are 176 depictions of Mary, the same number as stained glass windows, in her cathedral. I almost couldn't believe that I was really there, in this living, breathing, sacred body of a building. Diana Butler Bass, I may have mentioned her once or twice, a Christian historian, co-led the first class that I attended in Chartres. And she wrote this brief synopsis in one of her books about the history of Chartres. As spiritual geography, Chartres has been special since ancient times. Long before Christians worshiped there, Druids revered a spring in Chartres and built a sacred well where the cathedral now stands. This is in the crypt, and that is terrifyingly deep. There's the guardrail, and that's looking down into the well. They believed that one day, this is the Druids, one day a virgin would bear a child that would heal the world, and the spring with its flowing water represented hope for this birth. Not surprisingly, when Christians first came to Chartres, they built an altar to Virgin Mary on this site. Roman authorities were not thrilled with this development, and they tossed the bodies of the Christian worshipers into the sacred well. Eventually, Christians built a church to remember these martyrs and dedicated it to Mary, the mother of Jesus. By 800, the church claimed to hold the tunic that wrapped Mary during Jesus' birth, a relic of such stature that Chartres became an important pilgrimage site, complete with a new cathedral. Here's on the left is how it sits in the back of the cathedral in one of its own chapels, and there's just a close-up. When you get inside close enough, you can still see the outline of some of the designs. It's really stunning. The building stands is one that replaced an older one lost in a fire in 1194. The story goes that when the priests emerged from the crypt 3 days after the fire, holding the veil, the town took that to mean that Mary needed a bigger cathedral. And so they built in record time 26 years, unheard of. Thousands of people, the whole town working together. Sacred wells and living water. Martyrs and relics, labyrinth and rose window. Music and allegory, exile and return. Somehow in Chartres, time shifted. I had no idea how long I had been there, a world within a world. It was almost like being inside an icon of the cosmos. They light up their cathedral every night. Without words, medieval people left behind a record of faith in this building, a living witness to wonder, and that sense of awe and wonder never abated. In fact, it increased every day of the nearly 2 weeks I was blessed to spend there. Lauren Artris, mother of the modern Labyrinth movement and the leader of the Labyrinth facilitator training I participated in Chartres, said to us, "There's a difference when you approach something as a pilgrim instead of a tourist." It stuck with me, and I found truth in it over and over again. And certainly on my journeys, I had many tourist moments, enjoyable and memorable and delightful. But I wasn't changed by them the way I was changed in Chartres. A pilgrim's goal is to make meaningful connections, to connect with the divine using all of our senses, to reconnect our mind and our spirit and our bodies. Rumi wrote, "Let yourself be silently drawn to the stronger pull of what you really love. It will not lead you astray." Arriving in a place that my heart had longed so long to be, there was a sense of almost letting go, of expectations that might get in the way of experiences, of control over what my experience would be. And as I embraced the pilgrim way, I was surprised and open to seeds that would be planted. I found in Chartres an overwhelming feeling of rightness, of welcome and belonging, and I was not alone. This was the 1,000th year of pilgrimage, as the cathedral had been welcoming pilgrims since the year 1024. A written pamphlet declared a year with Mary from the feast of her nativity on September the 8th of 2024 to the feast of her Assumption on August 15th, 2025, just last Friday. On Pentecost Sunday in Chartres, I witnessed 20,000 pilgrims flood into the city. They had walked 3 days from Paris. Here's some pictures of some of them. I stood at the corner and watched them make that same turn that I did, to see the spires appear before them. They came singing, and many weeping. Priests lined up high-fiving the children. I thought, we've all come to Mary's home, and she welcomes us all with open and loving arms, an incredible blessing to share. And there will be time for photos and seminars and more history and details about the magnificence of this cathedral. But for today and this sacred time, I want to share 3, short as I can make them, personal stories about my pilgrimage. Times when I was fully open to the gifts of sacred experience without expectation and received. First one, St. George. At the end of my first week in Chartres, our group had the opportunity for a private nighttime labyrinth walk, an experience I had been waiting 20 years for. Chairs usually cover the entirety of the labyrinth, except for Fridays from Lent through All Saints' Day. But the center of the labyrinth is always uncovered. It lies right in the center aisle, and on the left you can see the rose window. The sacred geometry of the place is such that if you folded the front wall down, the rose window would cover the labyrinth with the center on the center. I was so careful all week to not step foot in the center because I had been waiting this long and I was going to reach it the right way. by walking the path of 11 circuits and 28 180-degree turns. And on the evening of the walk, it poured down rain. We made our way in our raincoats up the hill from the monastery to the south door, and we huddled against the stone saints to block the wind, waiting. We were listening for 3 loud knocks on those massive wooden doors, telling us all was prepared. The knocks came, the door creaked open, and we entered to a candlelit path, leading us along the south aisle under the window depicting Mary's journey to heaven, to the journey ahead of us that night at the entrance to the labyrinth. And we saw it fully uncovered for the first time, just like that. The storm was silenced by the stones. We were truly in a place of shelter. We placed our raincoats, and some of us our socks and shoes, along the rows of chairs that had been moved to the side. We lined up, waiting our turn to be welcomed onto the path. Heart racing, I took my first step onto the labyrinth. I'd thought about it carefully, and I had chosen that I was going to walk the tripudium step. 3 steps forward, 1 step back. A step that I had researched and written about all those years ago, and which historically represented 3 steps forward for the Trinity, God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit, and 1 step back for humanity. And I wanted to step into that history. I looked down the whole way, mesmerized and completely focused on the stone pathway. The stones worn down and damaged by the chairs, but yet so full of energy. I wound my way to the middle, stepped into the center, took a deep breath, looked up, and found myself looking right at this depiction of St. George with all these swords stabbing him. I had this terrible feeling of letdown. Here I am, finally in the middle of this magical place I've longed for, and a place full of Mary, and I look up in this significant moment and I get a stabbing. I reminded myself, okay, the experience is not over. I took the time to stand in each of the 6 petals that surround the center of the labyrinth, facing the rose window and away from St. George and his swords. But when I got to the 6th petal, there was something about the way the stones had worn down in that spot that my feet just fit into, almost like a mold. It felt amazing. It was stable and centered, and like I could draw up from the source of that great sacred well in the crypt below. And then looking up, wouldn't you know it, George and his swords. And I hear an inner voice say, "Stop it." At first I thought, okay, stop taking yourself out of the experience by fixating on this one piece of one window. You are literally surrounded by other options. But I stood there and I breathed, and inside, that "stop it" bubbled up again. And that time I heard it differently. Stop sticking swords in yourself. I heard a reproach from the sacred site telling me to slay my own dragon of self-doubt, that imposter syndrome, all that negative self-talk that does nothing but hold me back. From what I'm still figuring out, but I heard it. And I walked the 11 circuits back out without a single step backwards. Can we do one more story? Is it okay? I'm watching the clock. I know we got a big day. Okay. Story 2, the 2 Marys. The last class that I took in Chart was Meeting Mary. She'd been alongside me throughout the 2 weeks, and it was good to spend time with her in focus. In my own private time in the cathedral, I had been drawn over and over to sit with one particular Mary, this one, Mary of the Pillar. She's cradling Jesus in her arms, Jesus giving the sign of peace. And I'm not sure why this Mary, aesthetically, in an artistic way, it's not the one I would think I'd be pulled toward. But there was something about her that quite literally stopped me in my tracks the first time I walked around the cathedral. And I went back to her each day to spend time praying and listening. I was captivated by her. During the class, at the end of the 2 weeks, we learned that she was once thought to be a Black Madonna. That's what she looked like. But when the restoration of the cathedral began in 1997, and it's still going on, it's a big undertaking, she was cleaned and found that she was actually quite pale under the layer of soot and age. There is a Black Madonna in Chartres Cathedral. Lady of the Underground is in the crypt, and I'll show you her another day. She is wonderful and fierce. Well, I had mixed feelings when I learned this. It felt like layers of history had been erased in some way. Well, on my last day of the course, and also my last day in Chartres, I wandered into a little shop that I hadn't explored yet, and I found a small statue, about that big, that was Our Lady of the Pillar in her darker form. So I bought it and I put it in my bag. Our final assignment that afternoon was to spend an hour with any Mary that we chose. I went back to Mary of the Pillar. I lit a candle and I sat on the left side. I didn't like the right side. For some reason, it felt like her face was turned away from me over there. I sat on the left and I gazed at her as I held the candle in my hands, let it warm them. After a while, I moved to the kneeler and said the Hail Mary, no longer a foreign prayer to this Protestant gal. And then I approached the pillar, touching my forehead and my hands and the candle to it, feeling the energy from all the pilgrims who had done the same, who I had witnessed done the same, and who were witnessing me. And I walked the candle back and I placed it in vigil with all the other lit candles, let my hands feel their combined heat. And then walking back to my seat, I remembered the statue. And I decided to take it out of my bag and hold it for a little while, thinking maybe I could transfer some of the energy from the real thing into this piece. But no matter how I hold it, or where I sat, or where I brought it in her space, it didn't feel right. It was misaligned and cold, and it felt uncomfortable in a spot that I had grown so accustomed to feeling safe in. No sooner had I recognized this discomfort, I heard that little voice again say clear as day, leave her. So I did. I walked, little Mary, up to the pillar, and I nestled her at the base underneath a bright yellow rose. After sitting for a bit, I took out my journal and I wrote down what I believe is a parting gift from Mary of the Pillar. You are here now. Don't forget me. Follow the path, it will bring you home / here. There's no need to grieve. You don't need to take me. I'm already with you. Story 3, Spirit at Play. At the end of that last day in Chartres, after the cathedral had closed, we were invited back in for another private labyrinth walk. Those of us who had completed the labyrinth facilitator training the week prior were invited to help set the space for those who had not yet had the experience. It was such a gift to be allowed to participate in the sacred task of moving the chairs off the labyrinth, to set the candles that would light the pilgrim path, and to be a maker of the way. When it came time to walk, I toed off my socks and shoes and got in line, ready to be welcomed back on to the sacred journey. Now, the first walk I was very serious about. It was so important for so long that I had planned it out, how I was going to walk. I was going to do it right. But this time, I was so gifted by being part of making the welcome that my turn to walk came without any time to get myself all worked about how I was going to do it. I just walked. and my feet found what felt like familiar grooves in the stones. And some of the stones felt like hopping stones, and so I hopped. And some felt like deep bending and soaking up the feeling of them stones, and so I let my weight just sink into them. I thought, she's playful tonight. I reached the center, and after a smile up at now my good friend George, I spent time in each petal once again, but this time I lifted my arms into the orans position, an ancient symbol of blessing found in the catacombs. And I breathed and I just soaked it in, the company and the place and the light and the peace. A companion on the way danced across the center with me, the two of us communicating wordlessly and with so much joy. When I stood in the center and looked up at that rose window, I could feel the sacred geometry of the place. I could feel what it would be like if the wall had folded down, the light of the center covering me, the color of the window encompassing the path of us all. There were no little voices that night, but on the way out, there were playful surprises. I found these two stickers. Hopefully you'll be able to see them in the picture. They're arrows pointing in opposite directions. And I thought, well, there's a metaphor. That's another thing we were taught. Everything in the labyrinth is a metaphor. And then, I don't have a picture of them, but one's on my necklace. 4 hot pink plastic beads. I know. Like a breadcrumb trail, left just for me. I left the path that night so full of joy and energy, reminded that there is no gatekeeping of spirituality. Sometimes it is serious tripudium walking and swords of self-doubt. And sometimes it's dancing with fellow pilgrims and a trail of pink beads. This walk was an affirmation. Walk your own path and follow what fills you. Our ancestors have shown the way, leaving gifts of awe and wonder for us to discover. The same is true of UCG as it is of Our Lady of Chartres. Being a pilgrim is founded in trust. We don't know what we're doing, and that's okay. We don't have to know what we're doing to do it. We can make the way by walking. And probably my favorite answer Jesus ever gave his disciples: come and see. To live out the last line of John O'Donohue's poem, return home more enriched and free to balance the gift of days which call you. Pilgrims, we are not tourists here. As we stand in this place that holds our story, 60 years of devotion, it also lives and breathes around us. And I believe that if we listen, we will hear what its heart would love to say. Come and see. Come and see just what seeds will grow from this tended and fertile soil. Amen. Let us sing perhaps one verse of Will You Come and Follow Me? Will you rise as you are comfortable and called? I invite you, pilgrims, to journey across to time and talent. And I invite you to take the pilgrim's path And don't let expectations get in the way of what might be a new experience. Be open. Be open to the journey and the planting of seeds which will yield the next 60 years of UCG. Time is all we have, we were told today by John. John and all of the family of Bob, thank you for coming and sharing and being pilgrims again, once again with us. And now, for all of us together, let us go out into this world with the love of God on our mind, the compassion of Jesus in our heart, that we may go and see where the path of the Holy Spirit may lead us next. Go in peace. Amen.